Chief Executive visits the community to hear residents' views ahead of policy address. John Lee also vows to deal with illegal structures exposed after the recent rainstorm. Country parks could be too risky to visit after last week's downpour. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Chief Executive John Lee will deliver his second policy address on October 25th. He made a district visit today when he met with the elderly and their carers while listening to their concerns. Lee said the views will help him set out priorities for elderly services in future. Sharon Tang was there.
Chief Executive John Lee started the day by visiting a home at a public housing estate in Tsuen Wan. On his way to an elderly center, the CE spoke to some staff at the shops on the street. The store operator says he's glad the city's chief can make time to meet the public. He also shared with Lee how business has been for him, especially as most sectors don't seem to be doing well after COVID. As the CE continued his visit, he encountered a group of young kids. Lee chatted briefly with them, encouraging them to study hard. He also stopped at the Footlocker Kindergarten, where Lee spoke to teachers and pupils there.
It's very nice and it's very wonderful. Good man for Hong Kong, best team healthy.
He then made a stop at an elderly center which mostly caters to residents suffering from Alzheimer's disease. John Lee joined carers in taking a resident back home. As he headed to the final stop, an elderly care home, he greeted residents along the way. He stayed in the care home for about an hour. Wrapping up his visits today, the CE said many people told him what they most care about and that could help him sort out his priorities when it comes to planning policies. The chief executive's visit today was pushed back at least twice because of the recent typhoon and rainstorm. And unlike the previous consultation sessions, this is his first time going to neighborhoods to gauge public views on his policy address. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
John Lee also spoke about the issue of illegal structures. Last week's black rainstorm and landslides revealed illegal building works in some of Hong Kong's luxury residential homes. Jackie Lin reports.
Overlooking Tai Tan Bay luxury residential estate, Red Hill Peninsula was built around 30 years ago. At the time, retaining walls there were clearly demarcated. But now, not anymore. All three houses were recently affected by landslides, and they were all found to have unauthorized structures. Among them, house number 74 had a three-story illegal structure spanning 1,500 square feet. Its occupant initially denied entry and searched from authorities. Apart from tearing down parts of the retaining wall near the government slope, the homeowner built the basement floor boasting an area of 775 square feet, with the middle floor and top floor measuring 603 and 112 square feet respectively. Chief Executive John Lee today vowed legal action against the offenders.
I can assure you that for those identified problems, then we will take all possible means to ensure that safety is, first of all, protected, and then the person concerned will save the legal consequences.
He added those occupants should also bear any costs incurred from the remedial works. Structural engineer Ngai Hock Yan said many houses at Red Hill Peninsula excavated slopes to make room for extra basements, but that could damage slope safety and stability. Those who occupy government land without authorization could be fined a maximum $500,000 and subject to a 6-month jail term. Development policy think tank Library Research Community identified 173 instances of alleged illegal occupation of government land at luxury housing estates. Library researcher Brian Wong called on the government to rectify the issue as soon as possible, as it now concerns not just the interference of designated land use, but also safety problems. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Citybus resumed its single-deck Route No. 9 bus services between Shau Kei Wan and Sheko this morning. The bus service was suspended due to a heavy rainstorm yesterday. Some passengers were already waiting at the Route number 9 bus stop before 6 a.m. this morning. Sheko Road was under full closure after some temporary repair materials on the lanes were washed away by a heavy rainstorm on Thursday morning. After emergency repairs, parts of the Sheko Road reopened last night, but operated just a single lane to provide two-way traffic. The recent typhoon and rainstorms have caused widespread damage to Hong Kong, including country parks. An earth sciences academic said the public should be aware of potential landslides in the coming days, as a time delay can exist between rainfall and landslides. MMuseum reports.
This is the Shingmung Reservoir in Tai Mo Shan, where a landslide had occurred. Water is streaming down the slope. A massive pile of fallen rocks can be seen. Over to the Shingmung Country Park, traces of destruction caused by the adverse weather are visible. Some slopes lost their vegetation. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department warned people about the damage and potential dangers on parts of the walking trails. However, the disruptions did not stop some hikers. This woman said she will avoid the fallen obstacles, such as branches and rocks, when walking on the trail. We will be careful, she said. Although the adverse weather has ended for now, an earth sciences academic said potential landslides may still occur due to a time delay.
Geological properties, the groundwater inside the hill, and the presence of vegetation. These factors can cause the soil to weaken gradually, and that landslide may not occur immediately. Soil contains voids, partially empty. After rainfall, water infiltrates the soil, and this process takes time to wet the soil.
Warned that the landslides can also happen abruptly, and it is difficult to observe, so hikers should remain cautious when passing by slopes in the coming days. MMuseum, TVB News.
The issue of the Vatican, said Pope Francis's envoy, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, had open and cordial talks in Beijing with a Chinese government official on the need to find ways to peace in Ukraine. Meeting with Li Hui, China's special envoy for Eurasian affairs, the Italian cardinal also addressed the issues of food security and blocked grain exports from Ukraine. A Vatican statement said the two sides underlined the need to combine efforts to encourage dialogue and find paths that lead to peace. Before his Beijing mission, Zuppi visited Kiev and Moscow in June and Washington, D.C. in July. This as part of the Holy See's attempts to bring Ukraine and Russia closer to the negotiating table. Beijing has announced sanctions against two U.S. defense contractors in retaliation for the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. They include Lockheed Martin's subsidiary in St. Louis, Missouri, and defense company Northrop Grumman. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said the U.S. government has seriously violated the One China policy and disregarded China's strong opposition to provide weapons to Taiwan. Lockheed Martin's subsidiary was said to have participated directly as the main contractor in the latest U.S. arms sales to Taiwan on August 24th. Still ahead, government says Night Vibes campaign will work despite challenges. Death toll from Libya's flooding exceeds 11,000. U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, in further legal trouble. Welcome back. The government has just launched the Night Vibes Hong Kong campaign to promote the city's nighttime economy. Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong said Hong Kong people have the money to spend, and residents will be happy to spend it in the city if attractive activities are available here. But concerns remain that the campaign might be hamstrung by a shortage of labor. Jackie Lin reports.
有請司長點證。
A city that never sleeps, the nighttime vibrancy the government wishes to bring back with the Night Vibes Hong Kong campaign. But that would entail longer business hours. Do malls and shops have enough manpower to cope? Expressing confidence on that, Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong said malls just need to open about 2 hours more during weekends and possibly Friday. There should be a lot of workers willing to pull in an extra few hours for overtime pay, Wong said. While remunerated overtime might help alleviate manpower crunch for now, what about the city's labor shortage over the long term? Starting this month, employers could also apply to bring in low-skilled workers in 26 job categories from outside of Hong Kong. But these imported laborers could only begin working in the SAR at the beginning of next year at the earliest. To tackle that, Liberal Party chairman and retail sector lawmaker Peter Hsu suggests letting non-local university students or postgraduates in Hong Kong take part-time work. And that could supply some 10,000 people to the workforce. According to the Immigration Department, non-local students could work upwards of 20 hours a week, and the job should be related to their studies. But their employment between June and August would not be subject to any limit on working hours, the job nature, and field. Eric Chung Pak Man, General Officer of the Hong Kong Department Stores and Commercial Staff General Union, meanwhile said an even faster way is to attract housewives to rejoin the labor force. He said more incentives could be offered by employers, including more flexible work time for mothers to work between their children's school hours. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
A 20-year-old man was found dead at the East Rail Line's University Station in the early hours of this morning. Police received a report from NPR staff at around 12:30 a.m. saying a man collapsed on the Admiralty-bound platform of University Station. He was later confirmed dead on the site by paramedics. After an initial investigation, police said the man was hit by a departing train and had multiple serious injuries on his head and body. Overseas, the known death toll from the floods that have devastated much of eastern Libya in the wake of Storm Daniel has risen to at least 11,300. Authorities have now blocked access to the hard-hit city of Derna for everyone apart from search and rescue teams, as over 10,100 people remain missing there. Daniel Rao tells us more.
International and local rescue teams, the Libyan Army, the Libyan Red Crescent and volunteers from around the country are continuing their search for survivors under the rubble of buildings in Derna. The Libyan Ministry of Health confirmed divers are also combing the seawaters off the coast of Derna to search for bodies. This comes after the ambulance and emergency service in eastern Libya announced the coastal city is being evacuated and that only search and rescue teams would be allowed to enter it. The state of emergency there has been raised to the maximum level due to the spread of corpses in the streets and the risk of the spread of epidemics. The mayor of Derna, Abdulmanam Al-Kati, said 60% of the city's residential neighborhoods now have access to electric currents. He added authorities are working to restore electricity in other areas to facilitate the work of rescue teams. The disaster in Derna unfolded after 2 dams collapsed in heavy rains and sent a massive flood gushing into its streets early on Monday. It has underscored the intensity of Storm Daniel and also Libya's vulnerability. Since 2014, the oil-rich state has been split between rival governments in the east and west, backed by various militia forces and international patrons. The United Nations has stated that the years of chaos in the country have left government institutions not functioning as they should. This, in turn, has left vital infrastructure and disaster management protocols inadequate. General TV News.
In the U.S., President Joe Biden's son Hunter was indicted on Thursday on federal firearms charges. That marks the latest step in a long-running investigation into Hunter Biden that could cast a shadow over Joe Biden as the 2024 presidential election looms. This report from NBC News.
Tonight, Hunter Biden under criminal indictment and facing the possibility of prison time.
Any comment on the Hunter Biden investigation, sir?
Special counsel David Weiss not commenting today after handing down 3 federal felony gun charges against Hunter Biden for allegedly lying about his drug addiction when he purchased a firearm. 2 of those charges carrying maximum sentences of 10 years in prison. It comes just 2 months after that controversial plea deal fell apart under a judge's scrutiny. Weiss had negotiated an agreement for the president's son to avoid any prison time by going through a pretrial diversion program on the gun charge and pleading guilty to misdemeanor tax charges. Republicans had slammed it as a sweetheart deal for the president's son and blasted Attorney General Merrick Garland for choosing Weiss as the special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden. Tonight, a top Republican told us the gun charges are not enough.
If I ranked those crimes 1 through 12, I would rank this one a distant 12. And ironically, this is the one crime the president's son committed that you can't tie back to the president.
House Republicans have opened an impeachment inquiry to investigate whether President Biden benefited from the foreign business dealings of Hunter Biden and other Biden family members, though they've presented no direct evidence against President Biden yet, and the White House says their investigation has been a bust.
That's what they've spent all year doing, and have turned up with no evidence, none, that he did anything wrong.
Meanwhile, tonight, one of the 2 IRS whistleblowers to testify to Congress that Hunter Biden was given preferential treatment during the tax investigation is speaking out to NBC News.
I'm a 38-year-old gay man. My politics are simple. I am a Democrat.
Joe Ziegler telling NBC's Tom Winter that Weiss was not the right choice for special counsel.
Did there come a point where there were witnesses that you wanted to interview that prosecutors said, we don't think that's a good idea?
Yes, there were multiple witnesses that we wanted to go interview and we were shot down.
Should the American people have confidence in the outcome of this case?
There were leads that we didn't follow. There was evidence that we didn't follow. There were things that we didn't do in those 5 years that were essentially halted from the prosecutors.
About 13,000 U.S. auto workers have gone on strike after union leaders and Detroit's big 3 automakers could not reach an agreement over pay.
For the past 24 hours, we've been actively bargaining with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. For the first time in our union's history, we had all 3 companies bargaining right here at the Solidarity House, leading into the final hours of our strike deadline.
Members of the United Auto Workers Union began picketing at a General Motors assembly plant in Missouri, a Ford factory in Michigan, and a Stellantis Jeep plant in Ohio. It's the first time in the union's 88-year history that all 3 plants have gone on strike at the same time. In Florida, the state attorney's office has released footage from Miami International Airport showing security officers from the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, appearing to steal items from passengers' luggage. 2 TSA officers were arrested in July following an investigation into a theft scheme. The video shows them opening luggage and appearing to distract passengers as one of them puts something in his pocket that seems to come from one of the bags on the security belt. Both officers have been arrested. And to sports, former Spanish football chief Luis Rubiales arrived in Madrid's High Court today to answer questions over a complaint of sexual assault stemming from his allegedly unsolicited kiss on the lips of player Jenny Hermoso. The events of August 20th eclipsed the national women's team's World Cup victory in Sydney and led to protests similar to the Me Too movement. Rubiales has maintained that the kiss was mutual and consensual. After weeks of resisting calls for him to step down as president of the Royal Spanish Football Federation, Rubiales, already suspended by FIFA, finally quit on September 10th. Judge Francisco de Jorge is in charge of an investigation that has to precede any formal charges under Spanish law. De Jorge will decide whether the case will go to trial. If it does, Rubiales could face between 1 and 4 years of imprisonment. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.